Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Learning English Every Day. I'm David.
And I'm Emma. We're so happy you've joined us today. Whether you're preparing for the TOEFL, improving your academic English, or simply enjoying learning through conversation, we're glad you're here.
Emma, let me ask you something. Have you ever made a decision that completely changed the direction of your life?
Oh, definitely. In fact, I think most people can look back and identify one or two moments that shaped everything that came afterward.
I agree. It's funny because those moments rarely seem important while they're happening.
Exactly. Sometimes the biggest decisions begin with something very small, a conversation, a recommendation from a friend, or even reading the right book at the right time.
That reminds me of my first year at university. When I graduated from high school, I thought I had everything planned. I was going to study engineering because everyone around me believed it was the safest career choice.
So, you never questioned it?
Honestly, no. At that age, I simply followed what everyone else expected. My parents weren't forcing me, but it was apparent that they were happy with my decision. My teachers also believed engineering suited me because I enjoyed mathematics. Everything seemed clear.
But something changed.
It did. About 3 months into my first semester, I realized I wasn't excited about any of my classes. I wasn't failing, but I wasn't enjoying the experience either. Every morning, I found myself asking the same question. Is this really what I want to do for the next 40 years?
That's a difficult question to ask yourself. Many people avoid it because they're afraid of the answer.
You're absolutely right. At first, I ignored the feeling. I thought maybe I just needed more time. But every week, that feeling became stronger.
So what happened?
One afternoon, I met an older student in the university library. We started talking, and somehow the conversation turned into a discussion about careers. He asked me something I'll never forget. He said, "Are you choosing your future because it makes sense to everyone else, or because it makes sense to you?"
Wow, that's a powerful question.
It really was. I couldn't answer it immediately. Instead, I spent several days thinking about it. For the first time, I tried to assess my own situation honestly, not what my parents wanted, not what my professors expected, but what I actually enjoyed doing.
That's something many people never do. They spend years chasing someone else's dream.
Exactly. I made a list. On one side, I wrote everything I enjoyed. On the other side, I listed the things I disliked. Surprisingly, most of the things I loved had one thing in common. They involved communication, teaching, writing, learning languages, meeting new people.
That's interesting. Sometimes the answers are already there. We simply don't pay attention to them.
Exactly. Looking back now, the signs were obvious, but at the time, they weren't. Sometimes the truth isn't as apparent as we think. We have to slow down and really examine our lives.
That's one reason reflection is so valuable. When life becomes busy, we stop asking ourselves important questions. Instead, we just continue moving forward.
That's true, and moving forward isn't always the same as making progress.
I like that. People often confuse activity with progress. Just because you're busy doesn't mean you're moving toward the life you actually want.
Exactly. After thinking carefully, I decided I needed a different approach. Changing my major immediately seemed too risky, so I looked for another way to explore my interests.
What did you do?
I joined the university debate club. I started volunteering to help international students improve their English. I even began writing short articles for the student newspaper.
That's a smart approach. Instead of making one huge decision, you tested different possibilities first.
Yes. And something interesting happened. For the first time since starting university, I looked forward to Mondays. I actually wanted to attend those activities.
That's usually a good sign. Energy tells us a lot. If an activity gives you more energy than it takes away, you're probably moving in the right direction.
I think so too. Those experiences also helped me anticipate what my future might look like. I imagined myself teaching instead of designing machines. I imagined writing books instead of technical reports. And honestly, that future excited me.
It's amazing how our imagination can help us anticipate possibilities we hadn't considered before.
Exactly. Sometimes we only imagine the worst-case scenario. What if I fail? What if people criticize me? But we rarely ask, what if this decision leads to a happier life?
That's such an important point. Fear often has a louder voice than hope.
Very true. Of course, changing direction wasn't easy. My parents had many questions. Some relatives even thought I was making a mistake. They couldn't understand why I'd leave a stable career path.
I imagine they were worried.
They were. But after several long conversations, they realized I wasn't making a random or arbitrary decision. I'd spent months thinking about it. I'd assessed my strengths. I'd explored different options. I had a plan.
That's a huge difference. An arbitrary decision is based on impulse. A thoughtful decision comes after careful reflection.
Exactly. Eventually, they respected my choice. Not because they completely agreed, but because they saw I had taken the process seriously.
You know, I think every important decision has two sides. There's logic and there's emotion. Ignoring either one can lead to problems.
I couldn't agree more. Sometimes we choose only with our hearts. Sometimes only with our minds. The best decisions usually involve both.
I completely agree. And I think there's another reason your story is inspiring. You didn't wait for life to force you into change. You recognized that something wasn't working, and you had the courage to respond before becoming unhappy for years.
That's true. Looking back now, I'm grateful I listened to that inner voice, because one conversation in a university library completely changed the direction of my life.
And I have a feeling your story is only beginning.
It certainly is. Because changing my major turned out to be much easier than facing everything that happened afterward.
That sounds like a story for the second half of today's episode.
I think so. In part 2, I'll tell you what happened after I made that decision, why some opportunities had unexpected appeal, how mentors helped assign responsibilities that changed my confidence, why every aspect of learning mattered, and why understanding what is truly appropriate made all the difference. I told you about the moment I decided to change my major. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the right one. What I didn't know was that changing my major would introduce me to people who would completely reshape my future.
That's often how life works, isn't it? One decision leads to another, and before you realize it, you're walking down a path you never even imagined.
Exactly. During my first semester in the new department, one of my professors noticed that I enjoyed participating in discussions. After class one day, she stopped me and asked if I would be interested in helping organize a workshop for first-year students.
That must have been exciting.
It really was. At first, I thought she wanted me to move chairs or prepare handouts, but instead, she decided to assign me the responsibility of leading one of the discussion groups.
That's a big responsibility for a student.
It certainly felt that way. I remember thinking, why me? There are students who are much more experienced.
Did you ask her?
I did. She smiled and said something I'll never forget. She said, "Leadership isn't about knowing everything. It's about being willing to learn while helping others."
That's wonderful advice.
It changed my perspective. Until then, I had always believed I needed to be perfect before accepting responsibility. But she taught me that sometimes responsibility is what helps us grow.
That's true. Many people wait until they feel completely ready before accepting new opportunities. But the reality is that very few of us ever feel 100% prepared.
Exactly. Looking back, I'm grateful she trusted me enough to assign that role to me. If she hadn't, I probably would have continued doubting myself.
Sometimes other people see potential in us long before we recognize it ourselves.
I think that's one of the greatest gifts a teacher or mentor can give.
So, how did the workshop go?
Better than I expected. Of course, I made mistakes. I spoke too quickly, forgot a few points, and even lost my train of thought once. But the students were supportive. After the workshop, several of them came over to thank me. One student even said, "You explained things in a way that actually made sense."
I imagine hearing that must have felt amazing.
It did. For the first time, I realized that teaching had a special appeal for me.
That's interesting. Earlier we talked about how appeal means something that attracts or interests people.
Exactly. Before that experience, I thought success meant earning the highest salary possible. But standing in front of those students, helping them understand something new that had a completely different kind of appeal.
Sometimes our priorities change as we grow. What appealed to us when we were 18 may not appeal to us at 30.
That's very true. When I was younger, I admired expensive cars and impressive job titles. Today, what appeals to me is meaningful work, good relationships, and having time for the people I care about.
I think many people experience that change. Success begins to look different as we gain experience.
One thing that also surprised me was how many aspects of teaching I had never considered.
What do you mean?
Well, before becoming a teaching assistant, I thought teaching was simply explaining information. But that's only one aspect of the job.
That's true. A teacher also has to motivate students, answer unexpected questions, prepare lessons, encourage shy learners, solve problems, and create a positive classroom environment.
Exactly. Communication is one aspect. Patience is another. Creativity is another. Empathy is another. I realized teaching involved far more than standing in front of a classroom.
The same idea applies to almost every profession. People often see only the final result without understanding all the different aspects behind it.
That's especially true for successful people. We see someone giving an excellent presentation. We don't see the hours they spent preparing. We read a great book. We don't see the years the author spent writing and revising it.
That's an important lesson. Whenever we admire someone's success, we should remember there's always more beneath the surface than what's immediately visible.
As time went on, I also became much better at assessing myself.
How did you do that?
At the end of every month, I'd sit down with a notebook and ask myself a few simple questions. What went well this month? What mistakes did I make? What should I improve next month?
That's a wonderful habit. Many people evaluate everyone except themselves.
Exactly. It's easy to criticize other people. It's much harder to assess our own strengths and weaknesses honestly.
I started doing something similar a few years ago. Instead of writing New Year's resolutions that I quickly forgot, I began reviewing my progress every month.
Did it help?
More than I expected. I discovered patterns. Some months, I was very productive. Other months, I wasted time on things that weren't important. Without assessing my habits regularly, I never would have noticed those patterns.
That's such a valuable point. Assessment isn't about judging yourself harshly. It's about learning from your experiences.
Exactly. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is improvement.
You know, there's another lesson I learned during that period. Choosing the appropriate response is often more important than reacting immediately.
That's so true. Can you give an example?
Sure. One day, a student strongly disagreed with something I explained during class. At first, I felt defensive. I wanted to prove I was right, but then I stopped for a moment. Instead of arguing, I asked him to explain his opinion.
That was probably the appropriate response.
It was. As it turned out, he wasn't criticizing me. He was simply confused. By listening first, we solved the misunderstanding in just a few minutes.
That's a lesson everyone can use, not only teachers. Whether we're talking with family, coworkers, or friends, choosing the appropriate response instead of the fastest response often leads to better conversations.
Absolutely. Sometimes listening is the most appropriate thing you can do.
Looking back at your story, it's amazing how one decision created so many opportunities.
It really did. Changing my major wasn't the end of the journey. It was only the beginning. Every opportunity introduced me to another opportunity. Every challenge taught me something new. Every mistake helped me become a little better.
And that's probably the biggest lesson from today's episode. Life rarely changes overnight. It changes one decision at a time.
Exactly. If there's one thing I'd like our listeners to remember, it's this. Don't be afraid to question your direction. Take time to assess your life honestly. Look at every aspect of the situation. Don't choose a path simply because it's the most popular one. Choose the one that gives your life meaning.
And don't worry if the future isn't completely clear. None of us can anticipate everything, but we can keep learning, growing, and making thoughtful decisions.
Well said.
David, this has been one of my favorite conversations.
Mine too. And to everyone listening, thank you for spending part of your day with us. We hope today's story encourages you to think carefully about your own journey. Sometimes one conversation, one opportunity, or one brave decision can completely change your future.
Keep learning, keep asking questions, keep believing in yourself. And remember, every new word you learn is another step toward becoming a more confident English speaker.
We'll see you next time on English Learning Every Day, Advanced English Podcast.
Until then, stay curious, stay motivated, and happy learning.
Goodbye, everyone.